After falling behind 2-1 in the Western Conference Finals, the Spurs came into Game 4 looking like a totally different team. They locked the Thunder down and held them to only 82 points in a brutal blowout that shocked a lot of people. Just a few days earlier, OKC's offense looked impossible to stop, and now suddenly they couldn't get comfortable at all. So what actually happened here? Did the Spurs catch a lucky break, or did Mitch Johnson and the coaching staff crack the code with some huge defensive adjustments? In Game 1, Wemby mostly stayed back in deep drop coverage. His job was to stay between the ball handler and the roll man, protecting the paint from both sides while giving Cassell enough time to recover. That setup forced Shai into difficult shots and slowed down OKC's rhythm. But by Game 2, the Thunder started exposing cracks in that defense. Shai began attacking the open space before Wemby could fully recover, while Hartenstein rolled hard and basically turned himself into a moving wall. He'd slide directly into Wemby's path to create space for Shai to explode downhill. That adjustment completely changed the floor spacing. Help defenders had to collapse from the perimeter, and suddenly shooters like Wallace were standing wide open for easy threes. The same thing kept happening in isolation plays too. Hartenstein made sure he stayed between Wemby and the ball, almost like an offensive tackle protecting a quarterback. That gave Shai clean access to his favorite mid-range spots without worrying about Wemby rotating over. And once Shai started getting downhill consistently, everything else opened up for OKC. Their shooters could drift into open areas, attack closeouts, and force the Spurs into nonstop defensive rotations. That's when things started looking dangerous for San Antonio. But heading into Game 4, the Spurs clearly made a massive adjustment, and Wemby's entire approach changed immediately. This time, Wemby refused to let Hartenstein wedge himself between the action. Instead of trying to split his attention between the roller and the ball handler, he fully committed to stopping Shai first. The second the screen came, Wemby stepped up much higher instead of sitting deep in the paint. His pickup point moved closer to the level of the screen, cutting off driving lanes before they even opened up. Then once Shai slowed down or picked up his dribble, Wemby would recover back to the roll man with those ridiculous long arms contesting everything. You could see it over and over again. Hartenstein would set a screen near half court, and Wemby was already waiting up near the three-point line. As soon as Shai tried to attack downhill, Wemby planted himself right in front of the lane and completely shut the door. Cassell could recover behind the play, and then Wemby snapped back toward the roller. That left Hartenstein trying awkward little floaters over heavy contests instead of getting easy finishes at the rim. The Thunder kept trying to spam the same action anyway. Every possession looked almost identical. Shai would turn the corner, run directly into Wemby, panic a little, then dump the ball off to Hartenstein as a bailout option. The problem for OKC was simple though. Hartenstein isn't built to carry the offense as a high-volume scorer. Sure, he can make those push shots here and there, but that's not the shot profile the Thunder want living on all game long. Less than 5 minutes in, he had already taken 6 of those shots, and that was exactly what San Antonio wanted. By the second half, Shai got way more aggressive trying to create offense himself. He started attacking harder off screens, looking for gaps before the defense could reset, but Wemby stayed glued to him. His footwork, reach, and timing completely erased the paint. Because he was meeting Shai higher up near the perimeter, Shai tried using pure speed to get downhill faster, but he just couldn't consistently break through the coverage. Then came another sneaky adjustment from the Spurs once OKC switched into their 5-out lineups. Instead of putting Wemby on Caruso like they did earlier in the series, they kept Wemby parked lower on the weak side corner. During the first 3 games, the Spurs were daring Caruso to beat them. They left Wemby roaming freely away from him so he could protect the rim, basically treating Caruso like a non-threat from outside. That gamble completely backfired though, because Caruso suddenly turned into a flamethrower. He was launching 10 threes per 36 minutes and somehow hitting an insane 61% of them. That translated to 21 points per game just from the extra space the Spurs kept giving him. Game 4 showed they were done letting that happen. The Thunder also started using Caruso as a weapon against Wemby directly. He kept setting high ball screens because OKC knew Wemby liked to sit back in drop coverage. That left Caruso wide open on the pop over and over again. But the bigger issue was what those screens did for Shai. Since Wemby was dropping so deep at the time, Shai could turn the corner with speed, attack the open space, and get straight into his deadly mid-range game without much resistance. Game 4 looked completely different though. Wemby still matched up with Caruso at certain moments, but mostly when Caruso was parked in the corner. The Spurs quietly adjusted their defensive matchups behind the play so Wemby could stay lower near the basket instead of getting dragged into every action. That small tweak changed everything. For starters, Wemby wasn't constantly getting pulled up toward the ball handler anymore. That alone made the Spurs' defense way more stable. But the real advantage came from keeping him close to the rim at all times. Since he stayed low, he was always in perfect position to rotate over and erase shots at the basket. OKC tried countering that by sticking Jarrett McCain in the weak side corner, hoping his shooting threat would stop Wemby from helping. Didn't matter much. Wemby's recovery speed and length are honestly ridiculous. He could slide into the paint to help stop a drive and still recover fast enough to contest a three on the perimeter. Most defenders can't even dream of covering that much ground that quickly. The Spurs basically trusted him to read the floor on his own, and he delivered in a huge way. He recognized when to leave his man, when to stay attached, and when to shut down driving lanes without needing extra help behind him. Even when McCain tried attacking off the catch, Wemby stayed under control and moved his feet well enough to protect the paint by himself. That made it really hard for OKC to create those chain reactions that usually break a defense apart. Instead of collapsing the Spurs and forcing rotations everywhere, a lot of those drives just died instantly once Wemby got involved. Now heading into Game 5, there's still a feeling Shai is going to come out swinging aggressively. And honestly, an aggressive Shai usually means a quick 30-piece is coming. That's why a lot of people are looking at him to score more than 29.5 points again. On the other side, Fox has quietly been crashing the glass hard this entire series. He's averaging 8.5 rebounds, so grabbing more than 2.5 boards in Game 5 feels very realistic too. One of the Spurs' biggest defensive priorities all series long has been keeping Shai away from the middle of the floor. Anytime he tried isolating one-on-one, he was staring at a wall of defenders collapsing toward him. San Antonio's entire plan was basically saying, anybody else beat us. The problem was OK answered that challenge with elite spacing and quick ball movement. By placing their best shooters just one pass away on the wing, the Thunder made it dangerous for the Spurs to help too aggressively. If San Antonio sent extra bodies toward Shai, somebody was getting a clean look from deep. A lot of their sets started with Shai handling the ball up top while the baseline stayed flattened, and McCain spaced out on the opposite wing. Once Shai pulled defenders inward, he'd kick the ball to McCain, forcing a hard closeout. That's where things got scary for the Spurs. McCain isn't just standing there to shoot. He's comfortable attacking immediately off the catch too. So now defenders are scrambling, the paint opens up, and OKC starts generating easy offense. Just by organizing the floor properly, the Thunder made it almost impossible for San Antonio to crowd Shai without giving up quality shots somewhere else. The Spurs tried mixing in zones and double teams to slow things down, but Shai stayed patient and kept making smart reads. Then the rest of OKC took advantage of the openings. One adjustment that worked especially well was attacking the middle through off-ball movement instead of straight isolation, since the Thunder knew multiple defenders would jump. Towards Shai at the top, Caruso kept slipping into open pockets around the free throw line. The second he caught the ball, he'd instantly swing it again to Jalen Williams or another shooter before the defense could recover. That kind of quick decision-making created easy offense all throughout Game 3, and the Spurs struggled badly trying to keep up with it. This time, Caruso flows right into a dribble handoff for McCain, and the whole defense instantly starts shifting. McCain turns the corner hard, draws attention, then fires a cross-court pass to Jalen Williams, who's left standing there with another clean look from deep. And honestly, this all comes down to OKC's spacing being extremely difficult to deal with. They've got their best shooter locked into the strong side corner, another dangerous creator waiting one pass away on the opposite wing, and a finisher lurking weak side near the baseline. So once Shai attacks and pulls two defenders toward him, then dumps the ball into the middle for Caruso, the Spurs are suddenly stuck in a nightmare situation. If anybody rotates too aggressively, the entire defense can completely collapse in seconds. That's exactly why San Antonio made another major adjustment in Game 4. Instead of crowding Shai before he even started driving, they waited longer this time. The Spurs let him begin his move first, then sent the nearest defender to quickly stunt at the ball before snapping right back out toward the three-point line. It sounds simple, but it completely changed the flow of the Thunder offense. Suddenly, there weren't wide-open spot-up threes sitting there anymore. There weren't huge driving gaps opening up either. Instead, OKC's role players actually had to create their own offense off the dribble and make tougher reads on the fly, and that's where things started falling apart. The Spurs wanted to bother Shai without fully selling out and giving somebody else easy opportunities. By throwing quick stunts at him instead of hard doubles, they clogged his driving lanes while still staying connected to shooters. One sequence showed it perfectly. Shai attacks toward the middle, and Vassell quickly stunts over to cut off the lane. The second Shai adjusts, Castle flies in from the opposite side with another stunt and knocks the ball loose for a deflection. At the exact same time, Wemby rotates over from the weak side corner to make sure Williams doesn't get a clean three-point look. Everything was connected, sharp, and way more disciplined than earlier in the series. That's what made this defensive strategy so effective. The Spurs weren't forcing the ball out of Shai's hands recklessly anymore. They were taking away his space while still staying home enough to prevent the easy kick-out passes that had been killing them before. OKC's best answer for most of the night was simply clearing the floor and letting Shai attack one-on-one from the middle. And honestly, this looked very similar to what Dallas did against him back in 2024. The Mavericks packed the paint, stayed disciplined, and forced Shai to become more of a contested shot maker instead of letting him create rhythm offense for everybody else. Even though Shai still exploded statistically in that series, averaging 32 points per game on 60% true shooting, it still wasn't enough to carry OKC to wins consistently. One huge reason was because that defensive style disconnected his teammates from the offense entirely. Possessions started turning into Shai versus everybody instead of OKC playing together as a unit. And in Game 4, the Spurs basically copied that blueprint perfectly. Earlier in the series, the mentality felt like anybody but Shai beat us. But this time, it completely flipped. The Spurs said, "We're not letting Shai get everybody else involved." At the same time, they also made life miserable for him individually. And the biggest reason starts with one name: Victor Wembanyama. As long as Wemby stayed low near the basket, Shai constantly saw size waiting for him at the rim. That naturally pushed him farther and farther away from the paint, forcing tougher pull-ups and deeper shots instead of easy finishes inside. Then there was Stephen Castle, who might have played the best individual defense on Shai we've seen all series long. And it started before Shai even touched the basketball. Castle stayed physical off the ball, fought through actions, and stayed attached to Shai's body to avoid giving up clean switches. Every catch felt difficult. Every movement required extra energy. Once Shai actually got the ball, Castle turned into a complete pest. It almost looked like he was designed in a lab specifically to guard players like this. He picked Shai up in the backcourt, pressured him full court, and stayed aggressive possession after possession. But what really made it scary was that Castle actually had the athletic tools to pull it off without getting burned. He's insanely quick laterally, so he can cut off angles before they even develop. He's strong enough to absorb contact when Shai tries bumping defenders off balance. And maybe most importantly, his deceleration is elite, meaning he can stop, recover, and stay balanced through all of Shai's hesitation moves without flying out of position. That combination of speed, strength, balance, and length let Castle contest shots without constantly fouling or needing help behind him. So even though the Spurs were technically daring Shai to beat them individually, they still made every single shot attempt feel exhausting. And for one night at least, Shai just never fully found his rhythm. Shai finished Game 4 with only 19 points, shot just 6 for 15 from the field, and coughed the ball up 4 times. And the craziest part is the Spurs did all of that without constantly trapping him or forcing the ball out of his hands. They stayed disciplined, guarded everybody straight up, and made OKC's role players create offense on their own instead of feeding off Shai's playmaking. That's where the absence of Jalen Williams and AJ Mitchell really started hurting the Thunder badly. Those are two of their most important creators outside of Shai, especially when defenses start throwing aggressive coverages at them. Normally, they help organize the offense, attack gaps, and create advantages even when the defense is loaded up. Without them, other players suddenly had to handle the ball way more than they're comfortable with, and honestly, it showed everywhere. The Thunder piled up 20 turnovers, their highest total in any game this entire season. Possessions looked messy, rushed, and uncomfortable for long stretches. Guys were trying to initiate offense outside their normal roles, and the Spurs completely took advantage of it. Defensively, San Antonio kept things simple but extremely effective. Since Wemby stayed lower near the basket, the Spurs weren't panicking about mismatches nearly as much. They switched actions across the board, kept defenders attached to shooters, and focused heavily on staying in front of the ball instead of overhelping. That prevented OKC's best shooters from getting those clean rhythm looks they'd been feasting on earlier in the series. Now, to be fair, the Thunder still got some open threes here and there. They just couldn't hit anything. Anytime a team shoots only 18% from deep, there's obviously some bad shooting luck involved too. Sometimes the basket just feels sealed shut. But the bigger story wasn't simply the misses. It was the type of shots they were being forced into. Earlier in the series, OKC was getting easy catch-and-shoot looks with space to set their feet. In Game 4, almost every shot felt rushed, contested, or taken while moving sideways. Defenders were flying at them on closeouts, timing felt disrupted, and the rhythm completely disappeared. The Spurs didn't just defend harder, they defended smarter. And that circles everything right back to Shai. As long as San Antonio keeps defending this way, the Thunder's chances are probably going to come down to pure shot-making from their superstar. If OKC wants to take control again, Shai has to find answers against the stunts, the higher drop coverage, and all the traffic packed into the middle of the floor. Game 4 proved he couldn't solve it consistently. The Spurs held one of the league's most explosive offenses to only 82 points and completely blew the game open to even the series at 2-2. It was a full defensive clinic from start to finish. Remember earlier in the series when Caruso was averaging 21 points and torching them from three? In Game 4, he attempted only one shot all night. That's insane considering how much freedom he had been getting before. And it wasn't just him either. Jared McCain, Cason Wallace, and Jalen Williams, players who had all been major X factors early in the series, barely made any impact at all. Their bench production completely collapsed too. After dropping 76 bench points in Game 3 and helping carry OKC to a win, the Thunder reserves scored only 34 in Game 4. That's less than half the production. Between the turnovers, cold shooting, and Shai struggling to dominate individually, the Thunder offense completely stalled out. And that's shocking considering how unstoppable they looked coming into the conference finals. Before this game, OKC had a playoff offensive rating of 128.3, around 15 points better than league average and one of the best offensive runs we've seen through 2 playoff rounds in years. The Spurs slowed them down in Game 1, then OKC exploded offensively in Games 2 and 3 like they had figured everything out. But Game 4 flipped the entire series right back on its head. San Antonio answered with by far the Thunder's worst offensive performance of the season. Sure, injuries to Mitchell and J-Dub mattered. The cold shooting mattered too. But at the core of everything, this game came down to adjustments. The Spurs made every right move defensively, and for the first time all series long, OKC didn't have the counters ready. They couldn't protect the ball, they couldn't create easy threes, they couldn't attack the rim consistently, and most importantly, Shai couldn't completely take over as a scorer when the offense needed him most. Now the pressure shifts to Game 5, and the biggest question hanging over the entire series is simple: who's about to take control when everything's on the line?